Hey, everybody, and welcome back. It's time for another deep dive.
Yeah.
And today, we're going to be looking at a Reddit post that really got people talking online.
Yeah. This one's from the Guy Craze subreddit, and, it deals with some really intense family drama.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So to set the stage, the post is from a man who, as a teenager, ended up in juvenile detention for protecting his younger sister from their abusive father.
Okay.
So now, years later, the father is reaching out and wants to, make amends and reconcile with his kids.
Makes sense.
But the brother wants absolutely nothing to do with him.
Right. Can't say I blame him.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But here's where things get really messy. The sister actually wants to forgive their dad,
Oh, wow.
and she's actually cutting off her brother because he refuses to forgive him too.
Oh, man. So they're both dealing with this, super heavy past, but they're coming at it from totally different angles.
Exactly. And it just raises so many questions, like how do you even begin to navigate family relationships when there's this history of abuse?
Right. Like, who gets to decide, if forgiveness is even the right move?
Yeah. And when, if ever. It's definitely not an easy situation. So to really understand what's going on here, I think we need to go back to the original incident that kind of started all of this.
Yeah. Good idea.
So the post describes this really awful scene. The father was kicking his daughter, who was just a toddler at the time.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, hard enough to cause a serious head injury. And the brother, who was 14 at the time, saw the whole thing and intervened, attacked his dad, and actually left him with multiple broken bones.
Wow. So he went to juvie for protecting his sister.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. The sister has absolutely no memory of this event. She was way too young.
That's true.
So her entire perception of her father
Yeah.
is probably based on pictures, maybe stories he's told her.
Or even just a longing for a complete family, you
Right.
know?
That desire to have that mom and dad, even if they haven't been around, is a powerful thing.
Totally. Especially if you've never actually experienced the trauma firsthand.
For sure.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you've got the brother who is carrying the full weight of that trauma. Not just his own abuse, but also the responsibility he felt to protect his sister.
Yeah. Can you imagine the guilt he must feel?
It's got to be overwhelming. So it's
Yeah.
no wonder that forgiveness feels impossible for him.
Not at all. Plus, on top of everything else, the sister now has a young daughter of her own.
Oh, right.
So the brother's probably thinking, what if this guy hasn't changed at all?
Yeah. What if my niece ends up in danger? It's a huge burden to carry.
It really shows how trauma can just ripple outward,
Yeah.
affecting everyone around the situation.
Absolutely. It's not just about individual healing. It's about how those individual journeys collide and intersect.
Yeah, exactly. It makes you wonder if the sister knew the whole truth. Would she still want to reconcile with her father?
Right. Or would she push her brother away even more?
Tough questions, man. And those are exactly the questions that are coming up in the comments section of this post. Oh, yeah. Most people are saying the brother needs to tell his sister the truth. Let her make an informed decision.
It's a tough call, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, on one hand, you want to protect her, but on the other hand, doesn't she have the right to know,
Yeah,
to make her own choices?
absolutely. It's that classic dilemma, protecting someone versus respecting their autonomy.
Exactly. And there's just no easy answer.
No kidding. And some commenters are even saying that the brother should just focus on his own healing, Let go of the anger, not for his father's sake, but for his own.
That's got to be hard to hear, though, right? When you've been through something so traumatic.
For sure. It's hard to even think about letting go when you feel like someone you love is walking into danger.
Definitely. So that's where we're at. A brother caught between protecting his sister and respecting her choices, and a sister who might be completely oblivious to the danger she could be walking into.
It's a mess, man. A real mess.
Yeah, it really does feel like a no-win situation. If
Yeah.
he tells her the truth, she could end up resenting him and getting closer to their dad.
Right. But if he keeps quiet, she's making these huge life decisions without knowing the full story.
And that brings us to this whole question of forgiveness.
Exactly. It's such a complicated concept. It's not just about letting the person who hurt you off the hook.
Right, it's about acknowledging the pain they caused and figuring out how to move forward without being consumed by anger.
That's the thing, though. Is it even possible to let go when the wounds are that deep?
Yeah. Especially if the person who hurt you hasn't actually changed.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up. Forgiveness doesn't automatically mean reconciliation.
Meaning,
Meaning you can forgive someone without having to welcome them back into your life. you know?
So even if the brother could somehow bring himself to forgive his father,
Yeah.
it doesn't mean he has to have a relationship with him.
Exactly. He can still prioritize his own safety and his sister's safety by keeping his distance.
So it's more about setting boundaries and protecting yourself.
Yeah, forgiveness should never come at the expense of your own well-being.
Makes sense. This whole situation really highlights how differently people process trauma.
Absolutely. Like, the brother's response is all about protection, you know, setting boundaries, keeping everyone safe.
While the sister seems to be focused on connection, on creating this sense of belonging,
And who are we to say which approach is right?
right? They're both dealing with the same trauma, but their responses are totally different.
Exactly. And I think that difference in perspective can be really isolating, especially for the brother.
Especially since he's already carrying so much guilt and responsibility.
For sure. And, you know, in all of this, we can't forget about the father. The Reddit post doesn't really give us much insight into his side of the story.
Yeah. We only get a very limited perspective.
Right. But is it possible that he's actually remorseful? Like that he's genuinely changed?
It's a big if, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But even if he has changed, can he ever truly make up for the pain he caused?
That's a tough one.
You know, they say actions speak louder than words, so if he's truly sorry, he'll need to prove it.
Through his actions.
Exactly.
Well,
Not just through empty apologies or promises.
and he'll need to respect the brother's boundaries.
Absolutely. Even if it means accepting that a relationship might not be possible.
This whole situation is just so messy, you
Yeah.
know? It challenges this idea that all families should strive for reconciliation no matter what.
Yeah. It forces us to confront the reality of abuse forgiveness and what family really means.
And sometimes the healthiest path forward means creating distance,
Right. Even if it hurts. It's a tough lesson, but an important one, I think.
especially for anyone who's going through something similar in their own families.
You know, when we connect this back to the listeners, it makes you think about what family really means.
How so?
Well, is it just about blood ties? Or is it about something more, like a shared history, a sense of belonging?
Yeah. It's a question we all have to answer for ourselves.
For sure. And there's no right or wrong answer.
But this story definitely shows us that family relationships are complicated.
No kidding. And that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is create space.
Yeah. Even if it's painful. Man, this whole thing is just so heavy, you know? It really makes you think about how far you'd go to protect your family.
Yeah. And what forgiveness really even means.
Like, is it really possible to just let go of all that hurt and anger?
Especially when someone's done something so terrible.
You've talked a lot about the brother and the sister, but, you know, what about the dad?
Right. Like we're only getting one side of the story.
Do you think it's possible that he's actually changed?
I mean, it's possible. But even then, can you ever really erase the damage you've caused?
It's like, how do you even begin to make up for something like that?
Well, that's where I think the idea of restorative justice comes in.
What's that?
It's not about punishment or revenge. It's about acknowledging the harm that was done and trying to repair the relationships.
So in this case, that would mean the father going to therapy, maybe?
Yeah, possibly. Making amends to his kids somehow. And most importantly, respecting their boundaries.
Even if it means they don't want a relationship with him.
Exactly. It's a long process and there's no guarantee it'll work out. But it's really the only way to even attempt real healing.
It's interesting, though, because this case kind of flips the script on how we usually talk about forgiveness, you know?
How so?
Well, we always hear about how forgiving someone is good for you, that it helps you let go of the anger and resentment.
Right.
But in this case, it almost seems like the brother's anger is what's protecting him.
Yeah. It's like a shield against getting hurt again.
And who are we to tell him that's wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Everyone processes trauma differently.
Man, this deep dive has really taken us on a journey, huh?
Yeah. We've covered some really intense topics like family dynamics, abuse, forgiveness.
It's not easy stuff to talk about.
No, but it's important. And, you know, I think we should give the original poster a lot of credit for sharing their story.
Absolutely. It takes a lot of courage to open up about something so personal.
And hopefully this conversation has gotten you all thinking about your own experiences with family and forgiveness.
Because let's face it, relationships are complicated.
Yeah, especially family relationships.
And sometimes the best thing you can do is create some distance.
Even if it hurts. So if you're interested in exploring these topics further, you should definitely check out the Voices of the Soul podcast.
Yes. And for those of you who like watching videos, be sure to subscribe to the Shauna Pelage YouTube channel.
Both are great resources for anyone who wants to learn more about personal growth and relationships.
Absolutely. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the human experience.